Hey everybody, it's Dan, and my girlfriend and a lot of other people throughout the years have told me that because I am such a videophile and I really enjoy film and just, all sorts of movies and everything, particularly sci-fi, fantasy, horror, action, that kind of thing, typical guy stuff, that I should really be like a movie reviewer or a critic or something like that. And well, I've never really bothered because I figured, hey, what's the big deal? There's so many other people who do this and do it way better than I possibly could. I don't have any kind of backdrop. I'm sitting here in my house just in front of the door to the computer room back here. I I don't have any impressive editing skills or anything like that. So, I mean, you can find better than this out there, um, all over YouTube. There's plenty that's better than this. But if for any reason you watch this and you like what you see and you want to see more, just leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Um, agree or disagree. Have a discussion. Don't sit there and argue back and forth like a idiot fanboy or anything like that. But at least just maybe give me a comment. Tell me what you thought. Hit the like button down here, subscribe, and maybe even hit that little bell thing if you want to figure out when I do more videos. This is probably the first video that I've done in I don't know how long. But I got other stuff on here too that's just me singing and everything. Nobody cares about that. I mean, nobody's going to care about this. But anyway, so yeah, I saw two films today. One was just absolutely terrible, one of the worst films that I have ever seen in my life. It was bad. And the other one was one of the better films that I've seen in a long time. I would probably have to say that it may be the best horror film that I've seen within the last 10 years. The first one that I saw was the first Purge, and that just is the most horrendous film that I've seen in a long, long time. I mean, it just everybody in it acted like a brick. They could not act to save their lives. The main character or the hero or whatever was just such a complete and utter like stereotype. It wasn't even. It was bad. Like, I mean, okay, it takes place in an impoverished ghetto neighborhood, primarily African Americans there, and the main character is just a completely stereotypical like depiction of an African American, like, I don't know, drug lord or like gang boss or whatever you want to call it. Making a bunch of money off of selling drugs, killing people, being just being a generally horrible person. I mean, they couldn't, I don't know, maybe have like a black senator or something like that who was completely against the purge and decided to go out there and do things or try to stop it or anything like that. They had to pick like a complete and utter blatant like negative stereotype. They couldn't have done anything else, really. And I can't even. I think they called him D in it a lot. I think maybe his name was Dimitri, but I'm not 100% positive. I mean, if you can't remember the names of any of the characters that are in a movie, you know it's bad. Just so horrible. And somehow he was also apparently some kind of ninja. I mean, you have to watch it to really understand. He does these things that just seem almost inhumanly possible, or inhumanly impossible. Um, that didn't really sit quite right with me. Of course, yes, it's a movie. I understand that, but they were trying to get some semblance of realism into the thing, and it just that completely lost it for me. Um, And then all of the blood too. All of the blood was very obviously added in later, in as CGI. It and it's blatant that it is. I mean, it's like they don't even try to hide it. It's CGI blood flying everywhere, and it was horrible. I feel like they had a budget of about $10 on that movie, so hey, they must have made it back. Um, but then, immediately after that, I saw Hereditary, and oh my god, that movie is absolutely amazing. Um, Now, before I get to any spoilers or anything, I want to at least say to the people who don't want any spoilers, anything that you saw in the actual trailer for that movie, whatever you're expecting of it, that's not it. That's not what it is at all. Anything that you might be expecting to happen in it, it doesn't. I mean, whatever was in the trailer that you actually saw, yeah, those things happen, but it just completely takes a turn, and it blew my mind and was one of the most incredible and unexpectedly good horror films that I've seen in a long time. Most modern horror films, all of my friends know, I pretty much consider them absolute garbage. Any of that Bloomhouse junk is just, it's absolute trash. Every single one of them is exactly the same. It's boring and repetitive and just awful, and boo scares everywhere, when things jump out at you and whatnot. It's god awful. But Heredity takes all of that and throws it out the window, because the people who made that decided, hey, let's actually make, I don't know, a good horror film, which, in my personal opinion, has not happened for a good 10 years. Um, okay, now this is the point where spoilers are going to start to happen. So if you're watching and you don't want any spoilers, go ahead and just stop watching. Okay, that's fine, because it's pretty much going to be spoilers from here on out. Um, so the film is about a family of four. There's the father, whose name I did forget, and then there's the mother, Annie, the daughter, Charlie, and the son, Peter. Now, they're the main characters throughout a lot of the movie. And now, in the trailers, I totally expected there to be like a very important, like, the daughter, Charlie, the one with the kind of, unusual looking, I guess, appearance, you might say. And I don't know if that was, makeup or special effects or anything, or if that was her natural face. So I'm not trying to, be rude or anything by that. It looked different. Um, and I think that was intentional. In fact, I'm sure that was intentional. So I assume it must have been some kind of special effects, but I don't know. Anyway, um, so they're going about their normal daily lives. The grandmother of the family, the Annie, the mother's mother, had just passed away after living with them for many years. Um, and they go to her funeral first thing. And the daughter, Charlie, has, some rather unusual tics, and does things like clicking her tongue, that, like that. Um, that's a really important thing throughout the movie, actually. But, so anyway, she has that issue, and she's sitting there in the, during the funeral, doing that and drawing things, and she loves to draw. So, eventually, the son, Peter, who's, older child, and he's in, high school and everything, he decides he's going to go out with some buddies to a party. and the mother makes him take Charlie. So he's taken his little sister to a party where there's going to be drinking and probably drugs and things like that, and just not really the best place for a kid to be. And oh yeah, another thing, that the grandmother had this necklace that she was wearing when she died that had some kind of weird symbol on it. I can't really describe it. So that same symbol is on a like a telephone pole that they drive past headed to this party. Well, they get there. Peter decides he's going to go off and smoke pot with his friends while Charlie eats some cake that was at the party. And it was briefly mentioned previous to this that she had an allergy to nuts. And sure enough, she ends up kind of choking on the nuts or whatever, and her she starts to have an allergic reaction. So she goes to Peter and tells him what's going on. She can't breathe. It feels like her throat is getting bigger and swelling up. So he carries her out to the car, tosses her in, hurries up, and he's just hauling out to get to a hospital. And he's telling her, he's looking back in the back of the car, he's just like, it's okay, we're gonna get there soon, we're gonna get there soon. Now keep in mind, this is like maybe a half hour into the movie tops. So they're driving to get to a hospital. She's in the back seat. She's trying to get some air. So she rolls down the window and she like kind of puts her head and everything out of the window. Well, as he's driving, he ends up seeing a dead deer in the road. So he swerves. Just so happens that it's right where that pole is. And her head just goes flying. And at that point, I realized that this movie is going to be very different from what I expected from watching the trailers. My jaw literally I was sitting there for a good maybe 5 minutes or so, just because I couldn't believe that happened. That completely threw me for a loop. I was expecting her to be like a very pivotal main character in it, and in essence she was, but not quite the way that I expected. So anyway, Peter naturally is mortified by this, and just kind of goes home, parks the car, goes up in bed, and he's just laying there for the rest of the night, not sleeping at all. And his mother gets up to go out somewhere the next day, and we hear her, as it's just focused on Peter's face as he's laying in bed, we hear her get into the car and then just scream and freak out when she finds the body. And then it ends up cutting to the head just laying there by the road with just covered in ants, and it's been chewed on and just like messed up, the jaws all hanging out. I mean, it showed everything in very vivid detail. That was a fantastic fake head. Yeah. Really actually kind of grossed me out a bit, and that doesn't happen very often in movies. Well, eventually the entire movie starts to go through, and the mom starts having just strange ideas and thoughts, and we find out that she's a sleepwalker. All sorts of other stuff. There's a bizarre smell in the house that ends up being the grandmother's corpse, headless corpse. And just all kinds of really insane, messed up, and genuinely frightening things. Like, I'm not talking about jump scare frightening or like, things moving around in odd ways or anything, although that does happen later, and I'll get to that in a moment. But just really bone-chillingly frightening, just psychologically terrifying. It was really outstanding for that. And then also, much earlier in the movie, you see as the mother is working on these little, tiny miniature, people and houses and whatnot that she works on, she has a computer on over to the side of her, and if you read the computer screen, it says something about, expectations not being, or like something about having expectations isn't a good thing. And that really pretty much sums up going into this movie in total. So I think that was definitely an intentional move on their part. And yeah, you shouldn't have any like definitive expectations about what's going on in this movie. I mean, it deals with demonic possession and all sorts of really bizarre, unusual things, and lots of headless corpses and stuff. There was a scene where the mother is literally like hanging in the air and holding like a piano chord or garrote and just like sawing through her own neck. And Peter eventually freaks out and jumps out a window when he sees some dead people, and we just hear kind of like, she's still sawing, going at it like super fast and everything, and then all of a sudden the sawing stops and we just hear a thump. that was pretty awesome. But yeah, just it really it was not too terribly gory, but the parts that were gory were brutally gory and just really, I mean, like the sound of the wire cutting through the neck bone, that's gonna haunt me tonight, and I'm not used to that, being frightened by a movie, but it was good. Um, at any rate, the only thing that I was really kind of upset by was that there was the occasional jump scare that was good, like when the mother is first trying to do like this little seance thing with this lady Jeannie that she met at like a like a meeting for people who have recently lost loved ones and are trying to cope with that and help each other. And they've got their hands on this glass on a table, and the glass suddenly just like moves across the table, and it was a jump scare, but it was a well executed jump scare. It wasn't just like, boo, it's the cat, or boo, it's the monster that's hiding behind the closed door, and suddenly someone opens the door and it jumps out at him or anything. Like, it wasn't, someone turns around and nothing like that. So that was well done, but there were a couple of things that I thought were odd that sort of felt like they might have been something that was added later, like maybe after they had initially made the movie and then decided, you know what, the test audiences expected more, boo scares and creepy things that everybody always expects in modern horror movies now. So let's just kind of throw this stuff in for the hell of it. And I don't know, maybe they changed something. And I would be really interested to see like a special edition, or director's cut or something of this film that, maybe I'm right and maybe those things weren't initially in there. And, maybe it was something different. And I would really love to see that, because there were some things that just felt totally out of place. Like when the mother, for whatever reason, is kind of like inexplicably just like almost stuck to like, the corner of the room, like that corner up there behind that angel, like she's just stuck there, like in kind of an odd position, just like hovering over Peter's bed at one point, and then just kind of like, scuttles along in the middle of the air to get out of the room as he turns around and looks. And then later on, the same thing happens downstairs in their living room. She's like stuck up on the wall, like to the side, just like watching him as he's, finding his dad's corpse, burned and headless corpse. And Then all of a sudden there's a point where, he looks back and where she was at and she's not there, and immediately, like, she just comes like right out of this other corner, like down next to him, and starts chasing him. And that was really kind of a crappy, like, I don't know, typical modern horror movie trope thing that was just garbage. And I kind of feel like it had to have been added later or something. I can't imagine that that was in the movie to begin with, because it really ruined the tone of the film. But anyway, that's all I've got. Just wanted to talk about those two movies, mostly because Hereditary was really, really, really outstanding. So if you've actually stuck with me through 20 minutes of this, and you liked it, go ahead and like it. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit the notification bell thing if you want, and just let me know what you thought. And if you really enjoyed it, then let me know, and maybe I'll start doing this for other movies that I go out and watch. Just saying, the things I liked about it, the things I didn't like about it, that kind of thing. Although, to be fair, there really wasn't a whole lot to like about the first Purge. But all right, this is Dan signing off.